Hi, this is Teresa Schaff, IT 4683, Summer 2016. This was from Assignment 3, Question 1, the Top 10 IT Professional Risk Areas. The scenario given was that we were to define risk, specifically IT risk, and we are an IT manager in a medium-sized organization with 200 IT professionals. And the CIO has asked us to develop a presentation covering the top 10 things the IT professional needs to know about IT risk. In defining risk, risk is a potential of gaining or losing something of value, and it can be gained or lost when taking a risk, whether through an action or an inaction, and it could be foreseen or unforeseen. Generally, one looks at risk as a possibility of a suffering a loss, and that once an event happens, there's a negative impact or consequence once that risk is realized. And unfortunately, once a risk is realized, it's no longer a risk, it's a problem. And that's when you need to start working on getting it resolved. The IT risk is a little more defined to be the potential that a given threat will exploit vulnerabilities of an asset or group of assets and cause harm to the organization. And it's measured in terms of a combination of probability of occurrence an event will occur and its consequences. Next, we're going to go over some of the areas around risk. And the first one is analyzing risk. We need to identify risk. And as a team, we can brainstorm and we'll come up with a list of possible risk sources and use our team's experiences and knowledge to make sure we've covered all the potential risks that there are. And then we're going to use an assessment instrument to categorize and prioritize risk so that we can do a good project plan and develop contingencies if something comes up. Once we identify the risk, we want to assess the risk, and there's problem solving that goes on where once it's identified, you try to come up with a solution, and you would ask, like, what would cause this risk? And how will this risk impact the project? Then you want to develop responses to the risk. The project team begins to assess possible remedies to manage the risk or possibly prevent the risk from occurring. So you would ask, what can be done to reduce the likelihood of this risk? And what can be done to manage the risk should it occur? And then you want to develop a contingency plan or preventative measures for the risk. And so the project team will come up with tasks, and those tasks will identify the solutions to reduce or eliminate the risk. And the tasks identified to manage the risk, should it occur, are put into a contingency plan that can be put aside, but should the risk occur, can be brought forward and quickly put into action, and that reduces the need to manage by crisis. Once the risk has been analyzed, we need to come up with a way that we're going to manage it. So the purpose of risk management is to identify possible risk, reduce or allocate risks, provide a rational basis for better decision making in regards to risk, and plan. The different types of responses you can take is to avoid it by eliminating the threat, mitigate it by reducing the expected monetary value of the risk, by reducing the probability of its occurrence, and acceptance. You accept the consequences of the risk. So this is where a contingency plan can come in so that you can move forward and minimize what the consequences will be. Accessing and managing risk is the best weapon you have. It has to be continuous. It's not just get a plan and stop. You have to continually look for new risks that might come in and add those to your plan. And then the priority risk, you need to actively manage those and in a cost-efficient way try to get them out of the project. Your responsibility is to, once you have these risks or have these issues, is to provide management at all levels with the information required to make informed decisions on issues critical to project success. And as they say, if you don't actively attack risk, they will actively attack you. The risk manager responsibility, which as the manager would be my responsibility, would be to lead, innovate, govern, and manage so that we can identify, evaluate, mitigate, and monitor the company's overall strategic risk. So not just in our little project, but as it relates to the enterprise. There are tools, practices, and policies that we use to manage these, and they have to be in compliance with applicable regulations, rating agency standards, and the strategic imperatives of the organization. In this enterprise risk management architecture, they oversee and monitor all operational risk management activities of the organization. So it's key to get IT linked with those. I've come up with a couple areas that I think are important areas for us to look into, and they're listed here, and we'll go into details on each of these. I think in today's environment, security is one of the most important ones that we need to keep on top of. Information security protects information and information systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, perusal, inspection, recording, or destruction. So there are many ways that people try to hack into our systems for their own purposes. And when there is a breach of information security policy, it's usually due to a failure of safeguards, or sometimes it's unknown situations that may be security relevant. So maybe it's something we hadn't handled before, but once we see it, we need to use our knowledge to make resolutions for it. And the security risk management involves protection of assets from harm caused by deliberate acts. And there are many out there who either just do it for the fun of it, see if they can hack into systems. Some do it to steal our corporate secrets or to get our intellectual property that we've worked hard to make our own and make a business out of. And our users, our customers, our most important aspect is we are a safeguard for them, for that information. They expect that trust. There are regulatory requirements that our industry needs to be aware of and adhere to. There are legal risks, and those risks arise from the potential that unenforceable contracts, lawsuits, adverse judgments, and that can disrupt or negatively affect our operations. The legal violating trademarks and licenses, we could be sued for breach of contract. If we have labor or workplace problems, litigation, or legislation. These are all areas that we need need to be made aware of and properly execute in our organization. The compliance risk, there's regulatory sanctions, financial loss, or damage to our reputation when we fail to comply with these laws, regulations, rules, and other regulatory requirements. One of the ways that we're going to manage our risk is we're going to have metrics out there. We have identified them, categorized them, prioritized them, and we're going to do a quantitative as well as qualitative metric to determine the impact of risk on the ability of the business to meet its goals and objectives. And our productivity. Do we have a lack of quality? Are we not producing and therefore not bringing income into the company? These are things that we'll measure and track so that we can bring a product in within the time constraints and giving value to the business. Next I wanted to talk about is our benchmarking. We are not alone in this industry. There are many competitors, and customers want quality, but they're very driven by how much they have to pay for things. So we need a measurement of the quality of our policies, products, programs, and strategies, and we want to compare them to the standard measurements of similar measurements of our peers. The objectives of benchmarking are to determine what and where improvements are called for, to analyze how organizations achieve their high performance levels, and to use this information to improve performance. We want to be the best. We want to be the one customers ask for. So this is important to know where we are in the industry. The next area are the finances. What economic risks we have. We just can't have a great product and put it out there without keeping in mind how much things cost, what's the cost of us moving into the future and planning for new technologies that we need to go out and embrace. So some of the risk is that we don't have the money to meet operational expenses. And there are ways to reduce cost, be more productive, perhaps purchase Spectrum or something if you're in the technology. Some of the key things that as we move into mobilizing everything that we need. And if our expected returns are not realized, then our stakeholders will not be happy. And there's always the case of fraud, either internally or externally, that can impact our bottom line. I want to talk about the people that work here, the talent that we have in our organization, and the talent that we need to move forward in this industry. We have skilled resources, although some of the skills that we are very proud of are not what the industry needs at this time. And so we may have to go out and search for those skilled workers and bring them in if we can't bring ourselves up to that skill level in a cost-effective manner. Skilled resources are expensive, so you want to make sure that you have trained individuals, that there's continuous learning, and you have to be careful because people don't stay with companies like they used to, so staff turnover could be high, and you can't afford to lose those skills. So you need to make sure that you set up an environment where those skills are utilized and that the work is good for the people who come and want to do it. We need well-established teams and well-motivated teams. So we want people to open up and work on interactions and communications, and understand that since talent is very critical, that you learn from your peers. So as we were talking about talent and skills and different businesses that we move into, there are a lot of startups, and occasionally it is better to bring in established companies and outsource certain functions to get to the scale that we need to be in new industries. Technology, when we have to get new technology, upgrade the network, or buy new equipment, all that costs money, and the technology changes are quite frequent, so you have to stay abreast of what's out there. And there are risks from the design process. So you might think you're in the right area, and you design for something, but maybe it's not, doesn't realize the potential you thought it could. So you have to bring those risks into account. As we spoke earlier, contingency plans are extremely important. It's a continuous thing to be updated, so as project teams work, they need to continue the problem-solving process, identify the risk, and update the contingency plan, and to have it available and ready to be put into production to mitigate risk. Risks are going away, they change. There's a lot of smart hackers out there, so you can never just sit there and think, okay, we've got it all covered, because something will change. So you have to plan for it. Then I had a little bit about some of the risk in the whole project management from start to finish. There are many areas that risk can come in. You can not have support of your upper management. You have too many projects going on. The schedules don't meet the resources you have available. Maybe you don't have all the information you need. So you're trying to get something out there quick before another company does. So you take some risks there. Inter-team member personalities and working ways may not mesh. People need to be open to that, and we need to manage that so we can get the best from each person on the team. We have to be aware of the cost and the priorities and work within those. And that we have, as a manager, we have to go to our upper management to see where the business is moving in its strategy and the goals that they want to accomplish. As I've stated in many of these different areas, one of the key things is to be aligned with the enterprise strategy. We as skilled technicians in IT think we have it all figured out. And even though we might do an excellent job and create beautiful projects, if it's not linked to where the company is going or what business environment they want to get into or can get into with regulations, then it doesn't matter. So there has to be a link between what we decide as our business goals, so that we know that we're linked to the enterprise strategy. We have to meet our stakeholders' needs with a sound measurement process that we talked about, metrics, And we can use this balanced scoreboard dimensions to track a lot of those issues. Bottom line, we're into value creation. We either want economic value, our employee value, definitely our customer value, supplier value, channel partner value, alliance partner value, manager value, and society value. So there are a lot of different flavors where we need to make value for our enterprise. So in summary, when we're talking about risk, we have risk management. It's a continuous, disciplined process of problem identification and resolution. We have risk management systems that help us identify risk, predict the impact of the risk on the project, and determine whether it's acceptable or unacceptable, linked to our enterprise strategy. And we know that proper risk management will reduce the likelihood of events occurring and the magnitude of the impact. So these are all things that we need to think about in our daily job and try to reduce the risk in our projects. So I have pulled some of these concepts and ideas from different resources, and here are some links if you want to look further into them or do a little study to help the team. Thank you.